of Donald Trump's war come into sharper and sharper view. All week long, we've been telling you about the saga of the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the biggest symbols of American military might, whose 5,000 sailors and Marines are in crisis, at war, and at sea since last November. Their tour extended twice, no port calls, no land. Families tell MS Now the crew has gone hungry, without showers or mail, basic toiletries or hot water or drinkable water for long stretches, as the fleet can't keep up with the increased logistics of an open-ended war. And many service members are in a mental health crisis. Multiple Lincoln sailors have jumped or attempted to jump overboard. The wife of one showed MS Now a text in which her husband wrote in the days before he jumped, "The boat is finally getting to me." The mother of another sailor told MS Now that the problem is not the ship, it's their leaders.
What I want people to know is how would you feel if that was your kid over there, right? And I've heard people say this about Trump and his son. Send your son over there if this is all okay to you. And I don't disagree with them. How would you feel if that was your son over there? How would you feel if this was you over there?
Where is the president on all of this? Yesterday, we heard from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who denied there were any problems on board the Lincoln, a claim directly undercut, by the way, by the fact the Navy prepared to redirect another aircraft carrier, the USS George Washington, from its station in the Pacific to relieve the Lincoln, a move that will then mean that the U.S. has no carriers left behind in the Pacific for the foreseeable future. So every choice, big and small, made by this administration in the midst of this war comes with a cost. Have those costs registered with Hegseth's boss, the commander-in-chief, though. Trump hasn't been as eager as usual to perform for reporters and the cameras in recent weeks, and perhaps that's because he gets questions about this war anytime he gets in front of a mic. Remember, people around him say that he's been getting bored with this war that he started. Earlier this week, he was telling Axios that he's, quote, low-keying it. But today on the tarmac, Trump stopped in front of the cameras to talk up the economy, and he could not avoid a reporter's questions about the USS Lincoln.
I have a lot of things that are happening, a lot of good things. The economy is doing unbelievably from the standpoint of Wall Street. We have a record stock market. 401ks have set a new record. What else do I have to say?
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
No, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Has the deployment's gone on too long? Are you worried about the mental health concerns?
Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everybody.
Not nearly long enough, says the president. Hegseth indicating a military blockade of Iranian ports could go on indefinitely. The thing is, ships require maintenance. Munitions get depleted and destroyed. Sailors, human beings, need to go home. So you have to ask, does this president care about the costs? Or does he only care about getting something that resembles a win, or at least the fantasy version of a win that exists in his mind, which he shared on stage, by the way, at a political rally in Long Island today.
And after we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated, pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States.
Pretty soon, until then, whenever that is, well, Trump has other priorities for now. Today, his Solicitor General made an emergency plea to the Supreme Court to let the Trump ballroom construction move forward in a filing that described the structure as an integrated military complex, vitally required by national security. It also cited a Trump post promising his ballroom would be, quote, one of the most beautiful of its kind anywhere in the country. More vital than, say, making sure the crew of the Abraham Lincoln has food and clean living quarters? Trump may not show much interest in the plight of his service members, but at some point, something has got to give. Because remember, the Iran war is only part of a much bigger picture. The Trump administration is stretching the American military across the globe, asking them to do more, for longer, in more places with fewer rules and constraints, with no need often for justification, from striking boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific to invading a sovereign country and kidnapping their president, all to dominate this hemisphere. Earlier this week, the State Department posted a 5-minute long video praising the Monroe Doctrine with the tagline, "American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again." And the next day, Hegseth was publicly planning joint strikes on armed groups in Colombia.
When trouble happens, like in Colombia or Venezuela, we're the first ones to show up. We're going to bring those beautiful Chinooks and C-17s chock full of experts and supplies, and that's what we've done in Colombia, and that's what we've done in Venezuela, but Colombia is going to be an incredible partner.
There is a lot going on here. But perhaps this is what it looks and sounds like when your military is materially drained, but your leadership is completely morally unconstrained. And all the usual limiting mechanisms, like your members of Congress, international law, they're at best an afterthought and aside as Trump plows ahead on a range of pursuits from the Persian Gulf to the Panama Canal and maybe soon Cuba. This administration is acting as though American military prowess has no physical or legal limits, even though our military, and more importantly, the people who comprise it, absolutely do. David Shulkin is a physician who served as Secretary of Veteran Affairs in the first Trump administration and is Undersecretary of Veterans Affairs for Health under President Obama. And he joins us now. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you this evening. I want to begin with your broad take on what is happening to the thousands of service members aboard the USS Lincoln right now.
Well, look, it's very difficult to watch this, and we all need to take this seriously. The conditions in which our men and women are serving not only on the U.S. Abraham Lincoln, 5,000 sailors, but frankly, 50,000 of our military are deployed in the contact zones and the conflict that's in the Middle East. All of them are experiencing a new type of warfare, the warfare of missiles and of drones, and that really is taking a toll on our military members, and these prolonged deployments are of significant concern. So we need to take this seriously. We need to get in there and make an assessment, and for those that are suffering, we need to be able to get them out of that area and get the help that they need. But action is definitely required. We also have frankly seen this before. In the Iraq and Afghanistan war, we know that 15 to 25% of those who served in those conflict areas come back and eventually will experience a behavioral health issue, and some of them extremely serious, leading to people taking their own lives.
So what do you imagine the family members, the loved ones of these service members feel and hear when the president says something standing on that tarmac, like he did earlier today, saying that this deployment was not nearly long enough?
Yeah, when I listen to the family members and we hear from them, I really take that seriously. One of the things that you have to understand when a son or daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister are serving, it's really that whole family that's serving. And this type of concern for the family member is with people all day long. And I have spent lots of time with these family members. These are patriotic families that want to support their service member who is volunteering and sacrificing for the country, but they want to see them being safe and they don't want to see them suffering. So I think that hearing from these family members that are generally among the most supportive and patriotic of our missions, particularly overseas, when we hear them showing this type of concern, we need to take that seriously.
I want you to take a listen to a White House spokesperson who spoke on Fox earlier about all of this because of the way in which this administration, chiefly the president himself and Hegseth, seem to just be brushing off, even at times outright denying what service members are coming forward and telling the press. Take a listen to this.
Is the president concerned that these sailors and these ships are staying at sea far longer than they normally do?
Well, John, I think this president cares about our United States military service members, our troops, more than everybody. Remember Joe Biden, who unfortunately shifted the focus on our away from our war fighters and onto these woke DEI policies.
So So you hear the spokesperson there going back to the Biden administration, bringing up DEI, which I don't think has anything to do with what's unfolding here and the needs of the service members and their families aboard this ship right now. Does this administration, does the Pentagon owe people a more direct answer about what they're going to do for them?
Yeah. Well, I've had the privilege of talking directly to President Trump, to President Biden, to President Obama, and other presidents who have been commander-in-chief. And I have to tell you, I think almost to every single one of them does honor and respect and know the sacrifice of our men and women. But I do think that the White House needs to acknowledge the conditions and that we can be doing more to support our sailors and those who are in this conflict zone. And I think we heard that from the Secretary of the Navy, who came out and acknowledged some of the shortcomings and acknowledged that we need to be doing more. They are going to be sending more resilience counselors. They are sending a new aircraft carrier to try to relieve the U.S. Abraham Lincoln. And so it is important to be able to make sure that you're listening and hearing from those that are serving and making sure that you're acknowledging and acting in order to respond to what is a pretty serious situation.
Yeah, it's an incredibly serious situation. And I want to push on one thing there. I understand you've spoken to all of these presidents and, Americans across the board, across the political spectrum have immense respect for the sacrifice that service members and their family members make. But I think people are wondering right now about this administration, just how seriously they do see that sacrifice when we've seen throughout the week them being unwilling to grapple with the gravity here, at times denying claims that service members were even attempting to jump overboard, something that numerous news outlets, including us here at MS Now, we've been able to talk to people and confirm that these mental health crises are real. And so I guess when you see this administration and their actions in recent days, do you get the sense that they just don't actually know the facts? They don't know the truth, and that's why they're having trouble acknowledging it? Or is there some sense in which they don't care?
Yeah, I do think that this administration recognizes the seriousness, particularly of behavioral health issues, but I think that they're struggling with trying to acknowledge that publicly and wanting to show strength, especially to our enemies. But the most important thing that one can do to support our men and women and to keep that readiness and morale up there is to acknowledge and be transparent about not only what's going on and what's the current situation, but what are you going to do to respond to that? How are you going to be there to support? And I think that there is an opportunity for the administration to step up and to demonstrate that commitment, which I do believe is there. But right now,